In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.
Welcome to the Washington Football Team postseason show. As you know, we are not in the postseason, but it is officially the postseason, hence the postseason show. I am Amit. That is KDot, my co-host. We are going to break down the Washington Football Team season. We're going to do a brief recap of that. And then we are going to be introducing to you guys the Washington Football Team Offseason series next week. So for next week's episode, we're going to begin that series, and we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about our expectations for it, what all we're going to get into. We're both very, very excited about it. And then KDot and I both made some playoff predictions at the very start of the season. We are going to review them. And so all the teams that made it, our Super Bowl picks, and would we revise them? Okay, and so that's the structure of today's show. Hope you're all doing well, and let's kick off with the Washington Football Team. Finished 7-10 on the season, third in the NFC East, thankfully, getting Joe Judge fired. You're welcome, New York Giants fans. It looked like it maybe wasn't going to happen, but a 3rd-and-9 sneak did all it needed to do. But let's get back to our team. KDot, what are your thoughts on the season?
Man, like, it's just one of those things. It's like, I think we try to do the comparison game. Like, how do we feel after this season compared to after last season, right? So 7-9, 7-10, made the playoffs last time. It was just enough to do it. Not doing it this time. And I think anybody that knows, if we were to have gotten in the playoffs the way the season shook out, we'd be out that motherfucker real quick. 100%. So that's the thing. It's like, so it's hard to know what to hang your hat on when it comes to this team after a season like this, because there's so many question marks, right? Like, you can look at certain things you'd hang your hat on when it comes to the defense. Like, we all say the defense disappointed, at least compared to what it is they looked like last year. And there's some nuance with that, right? So we look at the opponents that we faced last year compared to the opponents that we faced this year. Night and day. Strength of schedule, a lot harder this year than it was last year. The quarterbacks we played, the situations that they faced, things like that. And I heard Ron Rivera actually say something, I think it was Ron, said something a few days ago, which kind of rings true, is that you had a defense that started to smell themselves just a bit coming off that last season. I think they all thought that, oh, we just got this made. Like, we're just athletic enough that we can fucking do it. And they got away from everything they did scheme-wise, especially on the defensive line early in the season, which put us in a deep, dark hole, right? Like, you look at before the bye, what were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what was it, 2-6?
2-6.
Right, 2-6 before the bye. And the defense looked in shambles. Like, there were certain aspects that they were like, all right, what's happening? Because they show flashes here and there, but then you see no gap discipline. Everybody's trying to pursue the quarterback. The defensive line, the linebackers aren't working together. There are deficiencies happening at the linebacker position. Yeah. The secondary, they're not on the same page. And we go into the bye, and after the bye, it seems as though they got reinvigorated, right? It's like Ron Rivera or Jack Del Rio got in those guys, and they started understanding, okay, there are certain things we need to do scheme-wise, and they did it better. And with that, by the time that we get to that point, you're talking about probably the most talented guy we have on defense. Chase Young is not there because he's hurt. You have Montez Sweat because of COVID, the broken jaw, all kinds of stuff, could barely play. Then you talk about, like, the COVID that ravaged the team, especially defensively, like that Dallas game, the first Dallas game where we were starting our 5th or 6th string defensive line guys. It just didn't do us any favors. But then on the offensive side of the football, I mean, after last year in the Tampa Bay game, we all got kind of excited about the Taylor Heinicke thing and seeing what it is we have with it. And we knew that we didn't quite know what the ceiling was, kind of had an idea where we were at the floor. But we were all in agreement that Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to be the guy, right? Like, they bring in Fitzpatrick and it was like, oh, wow, they're going to have somebody throw the ball down the field, do X, Y, and Z. What is that going to do with Terry? What's that going to do with that? He goes down in week 1. And now we're dealing with the Taylor Heinicke show. And look, he showed moxie a lot of times in the game, but physically you can just see he doesn't have the talent to get it done, right? So there are question marks there. Curtis Samuel, the big free agent guy that we got this offseason, could barely play this year. When we did get him in, it felt like we rushed him in way too quickly and then he could never really return to form. So it's like, what do you have?
Right.
I think like, if you're looking at the way that we thought this was going to be, if we looked at it as a full rebuild, right, when Ron first got the job, I'd say that we're kind of we're on pace. I don't feel completely dejected by it. I think the defense is still making strides. I think that with the free agent space that we have, what you can do as far as linebacker things, like, I'm excited about aspects there. On the offensive side, I mean, we got to figure out the quarterback position, but it's the same thing we were thinking coming out of last year, right? We thought we addressed it with Ryan Fitzpatrick, at least until we could find the young guy. Jury's out there. We're kind of back to where it is we were at the end of last season there, so it feels like wheels spinning on that end. Antonio Gibson has showed flashes that, okay, the transition from wide receiver to running back is something that's actually going to stick. That's good. Ball security is an issue. What are you going to do there? Then also the other guy on offense that I want to make sure that we've heard on is J.D. McKissick, who was basically out the entire season and has been probably the focal point on the offense. So I think there's just a lot of question marks. There's certain things I'm like, okay, cool. I look at the season overall, I'm saying it's a disappointment, but there was a lot of bad shit, whether it be the stuff that happened off the field or the stuff that was happening on the field to kind of get these guys on the same page. I don't know. It just has me overall just kind of saying, I'm disappointed with the product, but I don't know if this is some grand indignation of like where we are.
So I just wanted to say, for me, there was a certain degree of success. You're not going to want to hear that, but there was a certain degree of success in this season, right? So in Ron Rivera's second season, yes, we won 7 games again. And this time we lost 10, and this time we did not make the playoffs. From that perspective, this season was a failure. Let's not get it twisted. We all agree it was a failure. Now, there were a number of fans that wanted to figure out who Taylor Heinicke was after that performance against Tampa Bay last season. Guess what? We figured it out. And that is, to me, a huge success because we no longer have that question mark about him.
Right.
It's a bummer that Ryan Fitzpatrick did get hurt. He got hurt in the very first game against the LA Chargers. But again, we did get to see what Heinicke could do. And I think we all sort of know who he is at this point. That's one. Two, the offensive line was fantastic this season. I don't think people understand just how good. If you look at Pro Football Focus, and ESPN, they graded out our offensive line very, very well. And so I want to jump into some offensive stats, if you're cool with that, KDot, for Heinicke, for McLaurin, and for Antonio Gibson, because frankly, they're damning statistics considering how well our offensive line played. Okay. So according to Pro Football Focus, we had the 6th best offensive line in football. I believe it was 6th best for pass blocking. And I think ESPN had us even higher than that. Like, we were really good. So Taylor Heinicke, passing yards, 3,419 on the season. That's 19th in the NFL. Touchdowns, 20. That is 18th in the NFL. Interceptions, 15. That's 5th most in the NFL. Tied with the likes of Justin Herbert. However, Justin Herbert threw 36 or 38 touchdowns. A little bit different there. Passer rating, 85.9, 25th in the NFL. 25th in the NFL. That's not good enough. And then, of course, we finished with QBR. 50 is average. He graded out with a 40.3. That is 23rd in the NFL. So if you notice the trend there, that's all bottom half of the league. Every single ranking over there is bottom half of the league. Now, KDot, we saw what Taylor Heinicke could do. How do you see his role in this team moving forward? Do you want to see one more year of him next season? Or do you think, hey, I have seen enough. He is a great backup. We absolutely need a new starter next season.
I love Taylor, but it's over. Like, as far as him being a starter, I don't mind if to me, go make him one of the highest paid backups in the league. And I'm good with it. Like, if we locked him in the 6 or 7 year backup contract and just had him, that's a guy I'd love to have as a backup QB.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
From a standpoint of just even from a drama standpoint, we got enough on tape. We understand what it is. There's not going to be anybody calling for him to be the starter over whoever it is. We have a starter.
Yep.
And number two, he has the ability to just show up and do shit, and also have the team that knows him, understands him, and kind of rallies around him. And I also don't think that Taylor can look at the stats and everything he has and think, oh, I'm looking at what the offensive line did. I'm looking at the weapons I had, and this is what I did. I can't command some major starting salary in the NFL at this particular point in time. So I think it fits nicely. I think that's kind of what we're looking at for Taylor. Like, I would say that I kind of want to see how the market unfolds as far as quarterback. I want us to be very aggressive in that sense. But if like the asking prices for everything are entirely too high, or if you got Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers having cold feet on going anywhere, the Deshaun Watson situation devolves as far as what's happening legally with him.
Yep.
then I can see a situation where Taylor might be competing for a starting position here next year. But I don't think you can say after what we saw this season that he's like the unquestionable starter. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. And this is going to roll into my next point, which is we're now going to go through Terry McLaurin's numbers. Okay. And so this to me is what screams we need a new quarterback, right? So Terry McLaurin this year targets 130. That's good. Okay. That's 15th in the NFL. Love that for Terry McLaurin. Now, here's the problem. He only caught 77 balls, and that's not his fault. Okay. Because if you look at his contested catch rate, it's amongst the best in the NFL. So Terry McLaurin is that dude. If you're only catching 77 of 130, not good enough. That actually ranked 24th in the NFL. Now, touchdowns, only 5. Okay. That's 40th in the NFL. Yards, 1,053, 20th in the NFL. The worst one, and this is catch rate. Okay. So this is going to be target reception relationship here. 59.2%. You know how bad that is? 166th in the NFL for a guy we all feel is elite. Okay.
And whose catch percentage is usually really high.
Exactly. And so what does that mean? The ball's not getting to him because he doesn't drop it. I think he only had 3 drops this season. And normally he has 0. So Terry McLaurin, to get the best out of him, this is why KDot brought up Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, a new quarterback that is accurate, that can reliably get Terry McLaurin the ball is absolutely necessary for getting this offense going. Because again, when your offensive line is playing as well as it is and is being graded out by ESPN and Pro Football Focus as one of the elite units, a pleasant surprise. They did it last season too. They've done it again this season. You can call it a trend at this point. You got to do better. And you especially have to do better for Terry McLaurin. What were your thoughts on his season?
Two-prong. Yeah, I agree with you. Quarterback plays. That's why I think everybody was kind of excited about Ryan Fitzpatrick, is that because of Terry's catch radius and what he's able to do catch percentage-wise with contested catches, and you have a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick who's not afraid to put the ball down the field, it puts him in better situations compared to all the underthrown balls and everything we saw with Terry. But another aspect of it, and I've heard a little bit of rumbling about this, and I'm not entirely sure what it is to think about it. I'm not entirely sure if it's true, but a lot of also Terry and the lack of, I don't want to say lack of production because he's working his ass off, but the lack of success with as hard as he works. The scheming has been really weird with Terry. Watching games, it's rare that you're not seeing him run anything but a go route, right? Like, and he's a great dude in space. Like, he can be physical. He can move around. He's great in slants. He's great wheeling the ball. And I just don't feel as though we diversified a lot of what it is that we were giving to Terry as far as giving the ball. I heard that there were some injury concerns or something about concussions he's had.
Everyone's hurt, man.
I've heard about concussions that he's sustained in the past make it so they don't want him to get hit as much. But then I'd also say, how many times have he had to make some sort of acrobatic catch in order to put himself in position to get the ball, where he has to basically give himself up and know I'm coming down really weird, regardless. There were so many times he'd come down after something, whether it be a catch or incompletion, where he's twisting his body and landing without being able to protect himself. And it's like, you cannot allow your guys to have to do that. He's landing all out there on the field, and it's just not happening. I just think that we were very lazy with the way that we were scheming him in games as far as getting him the rock. And outside of that, you have a quarterback that can't get the ball to him.
So let me just jump in here. This is a Scott Turner thing, right? Because if we're talking about Terry McLaurin being as dynamic as he is, he can do it all. He can literally, he can score at any level. He can catch at any level. He can run any route you'd like him to. And we're talking about injuries. What is a go route into double coverage? Yeah. That is a guaranteed hit if he catches that ball. I'm actually glad it got overthrown a few times because it kept Terry safe, if we're talking about that. But underthrowing, not only an opportunity for an interception, but like you said, Terry has to turn his body. He has to jump up for it, and he's getting drilled anyway. I would much rather you see the way Miami, I know Brian Flores is out. That is an entirely different discussion that you and I can have, but the way they use Jalen Waddle, amazing. The way they immediately used a rookie wide receiver, I applaud the Miami Dolphins for the way they handled that, because Jalen Waddle is now immediately one of the best threats in the NFL. And you got a guy like Curtis Samuel. You know how you're going to use him. Is there any reason that while Curtis Samuel's out, you can't use Terry that way now and then? I'm not even saying all the time, but some of the time. We're going to get into, again, we'll talk more about Scott Turner in a moment.
There needs to be a Scott Turner fucking episode when we go through the offseason stuff, because there's like there's just so much that you can see with something. So it felt as though a good portion of the season, play calling there, but just talking about the way that the season kind of unfolded, there are a lot of questionable play calling, and there was a lot of questionable, what is this team supposed to be? And any given quarter, other than the 4-game win streak, you couldn't tell what the fuck this team's identity was. And I think that is a fundamental flaw, where it feels as though we went into the season with expectations of what the offense was supposed to be, and they never changed, at least to the powers that be. They never said, this guy's hurt or this guy's not performing the way he needs to. We need to switch things up. They just kept the same wheelhouse going. Yeah. And it's really fucking strange. Like, yeah, Curtis Samuels, we know what Curtis Samuels can do.
Yeah.
He's not there. What are you doing? All right, they try to do DeAndre Carter sort of as that guy. Then he caught a couple go routes. So they're like, we're just going to have him run burners. And it was like, what are you guys doing? Like, do you know your team? Like,
the only adjustment I saw was John Bates getting more involved near the end of the season. And shout out John Bates, by the way. He was second among rookie tight ends in yards per reception. He was, I think, first in run blocking grade, according to Pro Football Focus. 4th round pick, stud. And the second in yards per reception is only behind Kyle Pitts, who was round 1 pick 5 or 6. I mean, like 7. Incredible from John Bates. I'm really thankful for him. Great pick by the organization. Sam Cosme was also a really good pick by the organization. So there were a couple good ones. I know there are questions about Jamin Davis. I know De'Ami Brown was very disappointing. Only 12 catches on the season.
Utilization also, like, that's the thing, is that, like, that's
right. So if we look at Terry McLaurin's numbers, right, we say not a great year. I know he got over 1,000 yards, but not a great year. Same thing with De'Ami Brown. Same thing with Antonio Gibson. Let's jump into him real quick. Carries, 4th in the NFL with 258. His yards per carry, 4. Pro Football Focus had us as the 6th best run blocking offensive line. ESPN had us number 1. 4 yards per carry is inexcusable. I know we talked about him getting over 1,000 yards. I'm happy for him. We got to utilize him better, because it's a major disappointment for Gibson, but maybe you distribute the touches more. Maybe J.D. McKissick gets it more when he's healthy. Maybe Jerry Patterson does. Jonathan Williams looked great. Okay, Jonathan Williams actually looked like the running back that utilized the blocking the best.
Easily,
right? I mean, so you have guys, and again, we're talking about Scott Turner here. Use them, because Antonio Gibson led the NFL amongst running backs in fumbles. If you give him so many opportunities, and we know it's a problem, then you have to distribute the touches. Antonio Gibson had 6 fumbles on the season, and then touchdowns just rushing 7, which is 15th in the NFL. You add his 3 receiving, that's 10 total touchdowns. So in that respect, a decent season, but we're talking about Scott Turner being a bit stubborn based on these statistics. That's what they tell me. I don't think it's really damning on the player per se. I think it's much more scheme and utilization of other players. That's why I really like when John Bates got involved. That's why I liked when Jonathan Williams got involved. Jared Patterson gets involved. Antonio Gibson had his best day rushing the very last day of the season. Guess what? Patterson saw carries. Williams saw carries. So it's there. I think it's there. I think we do have some talent. This isn't Ashburn syndrome. We actually do have some talent at these positions. We just need to utilize it better. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Before the Scott Turner episode comes, he's been an offense coordinator for 3 seasons now. He hasn't had he had a top 20 offense once, and it was 19 that first year in Carolina. And Christian McCaffrey changes things. Just saying. Just a bit. I don't think that anybody's saying that we have anyone close to the skill level of Christian McCaffrey on this team. And he had Christian McCaffrey all 16 games that fucking season. Makes things a little easy. And also, you're saying to Jonathan Williams, he averaged 4.6 yards a carry. That alone can tell you. Which is where he gets then, like, there's a balance there, right? I will forever criticize Antonio Brown until he realizes that he weighs 225 fucking pounds he can lower his shoulder and realize that utilize the blocks, be patient, and run north and south. You got a big enough body to fucking do that. You don't need to do anything too fancy. All the scatting around before he hits the hole. Sometimes it works out, but a lot of times it's just take the yards the defense is giving you.
Yeah.
Take the yards the defense is giving you. But in that same token, when you have an offensive coordinator that does not go and run the ball in first and second down as much as he needs to, it puts you in a position where a lot of times those runs felt like it was sort of like a give up, or it was just like, hey, we're third down, it's too far away, we don't have a lot of faith, fuck it, just run it. Or you're second and long after what happened on first down, and it just doesn't feel like it.
Now, in the situation of Gibson, I can't tell how much blame I assigned to Gibson himself or Scott Turner. It's
a combination,
because I think they were both disappointing. Because Antonio Gibson, I remember seeing a stat. This was earlier in the season, and I don't know how it changed. I can't imagine it got any better for Gibson. Maybe the last game changed it. But in terms of like really good blocks, I can't remember what the exact metric was, but I think it was Pro Football Focus that came out with perfect blocked plays, okay, for running backs. Jonathan Taylor was number one, and he took advantage of it. I mean, he had an MVP caliber season. Number two was Antonio Gibson. I mean, that's how good this offensive line played. And so, again, kudos to all of them. And it really shouldn't go unsung. We have building blocks here, and that's why you hear us clamoring for a quarterback. And as we get into the offseason series, we'll talk about Scott Turner, we'll talk about Ron Rivera, etc. But there is potential. There really, really is. I want to
actually say I want Antonio Gibson to put on about 5-10 more pounds.
Sure. Or let's utilize him as a receiver, and then he can weigh what he wants to weigh.
That's the thing, is that then you're doubling up as far as what it is. So that's the thing. Antonio Gibson's skill set, you would think that he'd be one of the ultimate receiving backs out of the backfield.
Yeah.
But once again, with a Scott Turner-led offense, we don't adjust. So J.D. McKissic is that guy. No one else can do that job. And it's like, dude, chill. Like, what? Like, we can still utilize certain guys to make up for what it is we're missing.
Yeah.
We don't do it enough.
We don't. Not enough adjusting. Again, we'll get to all this. We are really, really peeking at this and talking about Scott Turner. But I want to quickly talk on the defense, and then we're gonna finally preview this Washington football team.
One stat that I just saw. How many games did J.D. McKissic play?
I don't know.
He
10?
No, 2011. I played in 11 games.
11. Okay, not 10, 11.
Started 3. 43 receptions on the season.
Yep.
Antonio Gibson, 42.
Okay.
My thing is that there were so many times where J.D. McKissic, even if he got to play, didn't play long. That number needs to be higher for Antonio Gibson. If he started all the games that he started this season, the number has to be higher. It has to. And if you start breaking down the yards per reception and how it is they're utilizing it, gets even worse. But you got to do more than that.
Got to. I totally agree with you. I honestly thought everyone talked about Gibson potentially being the McCaffrey of this team, right? Because he played wide receiver at Memphis and running back. He did both. And now we've just decided to turn probably one of the most dangerous weapons on our team into just a running back.
Catch a completely blown up screen.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, let's quickly talk about the defense. Just wanted to highlight a couple. I know it was a largely disappointing season for the defense. Chase Young tore his ACL. Nothing to be done about that. He finished with 1.5 sacks through, I want to say 9 games. Montez Sweat had 5 sacks through 10 games. So he's averaging half a sack. Not great. Shout out Jonathan Allen, though. 9 sacks on the season. That's third among defensive tackles. Okay. On only behind Aaron Donald, who unquestionably the best defensive tackle in football, and Cam Hayward, who everyone adores in Pittsburgh, especially off of signing a new deal. You see people maybe take it easy. You wouldn't necessarily understand it. You just notice it. You observe it. That's not Jonathan Allen. I mean, he was fantastic. He was a great leader. I know he had the little scuffle with Daron Payne, but love Jonathan Allen. So glad and thankful he's on our team. And then Cole Holcomb. I don't think people understand what a good season this guy had. He was 9th in the NFL in tackles. And his impact and his missed tackle percentage is at 7%, something like that. Like, he's terrific.
He's amazing.
He is absolutely terrific. Do not take that man for granted. Just wanted to shout out Cole Holcomb, and then a quick shout out to Bobby McCain, who, whenever he was targeted, only gave up a passer rating of 65.7. He had 4 picks, including the pick 6 against the Giants. He's got instincts, and he dropped a few interceptions. He could have had more. I really want to see this team keep him. I know they've hinted at it. I really hope they do, because he had a fantastic season after maybe a bit of a rough start. I thought he was great this season. Any thoughts on the defense, KDot?
The defense, I go to there are holes in the defense, mainly at the linebacker position, that need to be shored up. Outside of that, I love everything the mullet was able to bring to us in Cole Holcomb this year. And I got a fan of like loudmouth white boy linebackers not named Bill Romanowski. Same thing. I'm still a Will Compton fan. I don't give a fuck where he's at.
He's a great Twitter follow.
I love Will
Compton. Oh,
that's the thing. They didn't let him shine as much as he needed to when he was in Washington. He's always been a funny motherfucker. Even David Mayo at certain points in the season looked like he was doing enough. Like try hard guys, which is what you kind of want. The bread and butter of what you look at with a Ron Rivera defense.
Right.
I think the big question that I have on that defense is why in the world were the defensive line in position to all play so individualistically early on the season? What is that? You can't have Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, 2 defensive-minded guys, and you have dudes doing whatever the fuck it is they want to. That's a problem that needs to be addressed. The secondary finally started coming on as we went through the season, but I still wouldn't say, even if we have these pieces, I wouldn't mind a good name here and there, either at the safety position or somewhere at cornerback to kind of shore these guys up more. But linebacker more than anything else, something that really needs to be addressed, because it was the weakest link, I think, on this defense, is that second level. And that's the thing. It's like, if we come back and you got Chase Young and everything next year, I feel good. I feel good about where we're at. In this overall, this season is just, why did it take so long for these guys to get on the same page?
Do you think, because we talked about that second level, now we spent a first-round pick on Jamin Davis, 19 overall, and he's got all the physical tools. Okay, all of them. But he had admittedly a rough season. Do you think it's what's the question I'm trying to ask? It's too soon to call him a bust, in my opinion. He's still going to learn in the system. Del Rio and Rivera making that pick, I think is significant still. I still think that holds weight. What are your thoughts on Jamin Davis? Do you think it was a wasted pick, or do you think that he can still come on and be a beast for this team at that second level?
I think right now you're looking for the mentality from Jamin Davis, right? Like the
100% agree.
That's the thing, is that I look at him from a size standpoint, 6'4", 232. We run a 4-3. You're gonna play outside linebacker. Like they've tried him in middle linebacker. It's not working. Yeah. He's got the speed that you would think he could do some things in coverage. He needs to shore up a lot. And that's the other thing, is that if you're asking a young linebacker to place himself in coverage, the same way you look at a cornerback or anything, they're going to give up shit. It takes a while for you to learn that. One would think if it's just going to be a coverage linebacker, you draft him in the first round, it feels like you probably spent a little bit too much, especially when you're looking at some of the other guys. Like, I think the big name that everybody's comparing to is Micah Parsons this year, which is his next level. And you think that you draft in the same round as this guy, same position, like what the fuck? But I think he has the tools to be a contributor. I don't know yet. I think the jury's still out from what it is that they need to be asking him to do. I think if you have a Jamin Davis, a Cole Holcomb, and a stud somewhere in the linebacker room, I think you can have some stuff. I think Jamin Davis coming off with that speed, spelling some guys, or getting off the bench, yeah, that's cool. Is it worthy of the 19th overall pick in the draft? Probably not. But once again, the jury's still out. If he's picking balls off and tight ends can't fucking score on him, all right, great. But it's going to take a while for him to become that guy.
Yeah, I totally agree with your assessment of Jamin Davis. It doesn't look like it's going to work at middle linebacker. That being said, if he turns into a beast outside linebacker, and he certainly could, it's totally worth it. I think it's totally worth it at pick 19. I mean, it's not like every pick 19 hits. Like, it's just one of those things. We took a chance, and I think it can still very easily pay off.
It's got to work out soon, though. And he's got to kind of change the mentality. Because, like, if I'm looking right now, if you put a gun in my head and said, am I starting Landon Collins at outside linebacker or Jamin Davis? I'm picking Landon Collins right now. And that's not what you necessarily want to hear.
Correct. All right. Well, let's jump to we've hinted at it a bunch, the Washington Football Team Offseason series. Now, I personally am very excited about this idea. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to begin episode 1 with just the general philosophy. How do you build a football team? And it starts from the top, right? You have the owner, then you have the team president, the general manager, head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, the positional coaches within those systems. And then, it comes down to personnel and drafting. And how does that work? We're going to get into all of that, identifying roles and responsibilities. Okay. This is important at every single company. And honestly, a football team, it's a company at the end of the day. It really is. So when we talk about ownership, for example, we're going to get into Dan Snyder. We're going to get into his history. We're going to get into the team's record with him. We're going to talk about all of this. Then we're going to talk about Jason Wright some, right? Team president. What's his role? What are his responsibilities? What is he capable of doing, right? Does he hire the general manager, or is Dan Snyder the one hiring the general manager? And about the general manager, we got Martin Mayhew and we've got Marty Hurney, right? We've got both of them. Mayhew's the official Mayhew is the official general manager, and Hurney is the executive vice president, but they both are basically co-GMs. And so how does that work? Who gets say where? We're going to dive into quotes from all of these people. We are going to dive into their histories. We're going to dive into relationships like Ron Rivera and Scott Turner, for example. But then on the flip side, Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, they didn't actually join forces until here. So how did he get into the Jack Del Rio decision? We're going to talk about all this. I'm personally very excited, KDot. What are your thoughts?
I'm excited too. And I'm excited because, like, when you're asking me at the first segment right here, like, what do we think as far as the season goes? I kept it on the field. What I want to talk about is the shit show that was off the field for Washington, which made me feel, as much as I know personally some of the names that have been brought into Ashburn recently, I think that everyone that I know personally is a high quality person. Everyone that I've talked to speak very highly of everyone else that is there as far as a lot of the new hires. But because the Washington football team, whatever you want to call us in this, the new names coming next month, how many shitty things we saw come out of what was going on, whether it be the Sean Taylor situation, whether it be even it seems like they're kind of fucking up some of the name change stuff, whether it be I know the email scandal, you don't necessarily want to put it on this part, but the way that they responded to it wasn't necessarily great. Like, there's a lot of shit that's still off the field that makes me think, from a front office organizational standpoint, we got some fucking work to do, guys. And I want to do the deep dive. I want to diagnose and then potentially hope to fix, even though we know, spoiler alert, as long as one guy's still controlling the fucking team, there's not a lot you can do. But we got to address it, and we got to talk about it, and we got to talk about it in a real deal way. Remove all the loyalty to the franchise, the blind loyalty that we have. Remove all the hope that let's be real about it, and let's talk about every which way in which this team needs to be better, or what it is we can do to be better.
And one of the first questions we're going to address, and we'll address it right here, is who is the customer? It's silly, right? It is a silly question, but for the longest time, it was Dan Snyder, right? It was, the team was serving him, right? Yep. That's how you see him get involved with the Dwayne Haskins pick. That's how you see him get involved with RG3. That's how you see him get involved. He goes, serve me, right? But being the owner of a team, your customer are the people that are going to be in the seats, the fans, right? So the distinction between the owner being the customer and the fans being the customer, right? So you have an owner who's got all this money and he's used to getting things his way, but learning to take that back seat to allow the football people to do what they need to do. That's just an example of the kind of,
and if we even got the football people ready to do it, like, that's the thing. And if your customer's always right in this particular situation, just know the company or the owner of the company fucking hates you. He likes your wallet. He fucking hates you.
And you can tell from the attendance numbers. So again, we are going to jump into all of this. Personally, I'm excited. Do we view the fans as the customer, or is it still ultimately Dan Snyder? There's a reason some people don't want to work over here. And then you talked about the defensive line, just playing like, individualistic players. Well, we're going to get into Sam Mills. How did he get hired? Guess what? He has a relationship with Ron Rivera. So from the Carolina days, this is all going to be almost a behind the curtain, behind the scenes look at how things run, how things operate, because everything is connected. And our goal is to make everyone, including ourselves, we're going to be learning through this process too, smarter fans, better informed fans, and be able to understand what exactly is going on in a week 3 loss or a week 4 win. I'm very, very excited for this.
Same here. And I think another thing that I want to be able to do by the end of it is, even if they feel trivial at times, is what we can do as fans, being that we're properly informed, do to try to either change the tide or to not. Maybe even at the end, we hold an intervention so you can walk away from this. No, I'm joking. But something. What it is that we can do as fans that help the situation, or at least to better live with ourselves because of the situation. Man,
we're a part of it. So we're a part of this company because we provide money to the company. So maybe we as fans, that's episode 9, or episode 10, whatever it may be. But once a week, we're going to break it down, and it's going to go into free agency, get near the draft. We're still going to talk about free agency. We're still going to talk about the draft for sure. But sometimes you need to take that step back and go, what is really going on here? Yep. Right? What is really going on? So we'll get into everyone's resumes as well. But there is still football to be played. And KDot and I made some predictions to begin the season as to which teams would make the playoffs. And it went okay. So beginning with the AFC and beginning with KDot's predictions, here were his division winners: the Buffalo Bills, check. In the AFC East, the Kansas City Chiefs in the West, check. In the AFC South, the Tennessee Titans, check. The wildcard team, New England Patriots, check. But he got 3 wrong. AFC North division winner was not the Cleveland Browns. The LA Chargers did not go. What a last game that was.
Fucking Raiders.
Oh,
goddamn
my
Raiders.
goodness. Oh, my goodness. And then the Baltimore Ravens also missed. So 4 out of 7 in the AFC for KDot. Once again, he got the Bills, Chiefs, Titans, and Patriots correct. The Browns, Chargers, and Ravens incorrect. Now let's go to me, because it was a bloodbath in the AFC. Oh my God. I was so ashamed going back and seeing what I did. I got the Bills right. I got the Chiefs right as division winners. I had the Colts winning the South. Didn't happen. Had the Browns winning the North. Did not happen. Had the Dolphins. Nope. Had the Chargers. Nope. Goddamn Raiders. Had the Ravens. Didn't even have the 1 seed Tennessee Titans in the playoffs.
Rough.
So just sort of missed entirely over there. I went 2 out of 7. And again, KDot went 4 out of 7. What are your thoughts on the AFC field?
I would say if it's any consolation, Tennessee might be the worst first seed in a very long time.
Do you believe in them?
I believe in Derrick Henry. Is he coming back?
It sounds like he is.
So that's my thing. I believe in Derrick Henry. I believe in Derrick Henry in the winter and being able to say, hey, we're just going to hand this guy the football. Like, they were able to get it done without him. Was Jacksonville absolute dog shit? Yes. Did Indianapolis collapse there at the end? Yes. Did Carson Wentz collapse there at the end? Yes. And were Houston a dumpster fire? Of course. So, I mean, they kind of just waltzed in because the division was on fire. But do I believe in them in the sense, do I think they're going to go far in the playoffs? Absolutely not. But I do think as long as you have Derrick Henry, you can run the football. Mike Vrabel just have that defense play with a lot of energy. Anything's possible. If I'm looking at the rest of my picks, I mean, I'm not ashamed. The Browns, honestly, the Browns are disappointing. I mean, everyone had them. The Browns are just supremely disappointing. I think if we were going to, not on this podcast, but another podcast, because I diversified my Coach of the Year pick, I had Kevin Stefanski possibly winning Coach of the Year, where I actually think Kevin Stefanski actively tried to get Baker Mayfield killed this year. But like that was terrible. But they were just banged up so badly. I look at that, and I'm looking at the 2 teams that I'm probably the most shocked by: Cleveland and Baltimore, and they got ravaged with injuries. So like, I'm looking at that, I'm like, shit happens in football. The Chargers, Brandon Staley, young coach, get your shit together, homie. It's just that Raiders thing. Anything could happen, especially when you talk about a game that went down the wire that way. It was just interesting. I'm not ashamed of what has happened with my picks.
Oh yeah, and I mean, we were both incredibly close with the Chargers. I am terribly ashamed of my AFC picks. Only 2 out of 7. There's no way to look at it. I can't go 2 out of 7 and go, actually, I like my picks. No, they were terrible. I was awful. I'm here to admit that. I have a problem. I believed in the Miami Dolphins. Problem. I believed in the Baltimore Ravens. I actually don't hate that one, because despite all the injuries they had, They were close, but Cleveland Browns, big problem. Indianapolis Colts, fuck Carson Wentz. Are you kidding me? Jonathan Taylor had an MVP-esque season and you blew it. I don't know how else to say it. All you had to do was manage some games, but you can't do that because you're Carson Wentz and you need to chuck it into triple coverage because you feel like it. That's what you do. And that's on Chris Ballard, who today came out and said, I thought it was a good idea last season. I'm not saying anything about who's here next season. He admits it as well. So at least he learned from the mistake as well. And so did I. 2 out of 7. Jesus.
Carson Wentz, the anti-Frank Reich quarterback. Like, it's just,
I was like, Frank Reich's there. Like, they'll get along. They know what they're doing. But Carson Wentz just didn't truly understand it was Jonathan Taylor's team. Anyway, I could go
Nick
on
Foles
and on.
Broke Carson Wentz. He's not the same.
All right. Well, I think we got to conclude there with the AFC. The NFC. KDot. We both had the Washington football team winning the East. I think we learned from our mistake. Very hard schedule. Unknown at quarterback. Didn't go as planned. So you had the Washington football team that was incorrect. But your other 3 division winners were correct. The LA Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Green Bay Packers. Well done, sir. And then the wild card, you got the San Francisco 49ers correct, missed on the Seahawks and Falcons. Falcons were close near the end. Seahawks unlucky with the Russell Wilson injury. So I don't fault you for those. What were your thoughts on your NFC picks? 4 out of 7 there.
The Washington thing hurts. Like, there's no getting around it. And plus, it was kind of like a homer pick too. So that's the one I have to eat some shit on. And I understand. I'll accept it. The rest of it, honestly, Green Bay was pretty easy to call. Tampa Bay, fairly easy to call. LA, not the easiest to call because, I had 3 teams out of that division making the playoffs, right? So, I thought that division was just going to be really, really heavy. Arizona, cool. Okay, not upset. But Seattle, the Russell Wilson thing just was bad for them, and they got to figure some shit out. And the Falcons, the Falcons pick was the one that I was on an island pretty much by myself, and it almost happened. So I don't get any credit for it, but I don't feel bad.
And who knows? If Calvin Ridley doesn't miss most of the season.
It's a totally different season. It's a totally different season if Calvin Ridley was there.
Right. So 4 out of 7 there. So you were consistent. 4 out of 7 AFC, 4 out of 7 NFC. I more than made up for it in the NFC. So Washington football team, I got wrong, of course, another bias pick. I can't help myself. I'll probably do it again next season. Then the 3 division winners were correct. LA Rams, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Green Bay Packers. I got every wildcard team. The Arizona Cardinals, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Philadelphia Eagles snuck in. It's not about how you got there. It is about the fact that you got there. So 6 out of 7 over there, minus the very biased pick of the Washington football team. There, I am proud of the picks, but I still look at the AFC and go, my God, how could I have gotten it so wrong? But those were the AFC and NFC picks we had at the very beginning of the season. Now our Super Bowl picks, KDots is still alive. He has Kansas City over Tampa Bay in a rematch, this time in LA. Mahomes gets the torch from Tom Brady officially. I had the LA Rams winning at home at SoFi Stadium against the Cleveland fucking Browns. Once again, this AFC could not have gone any worse for me. It was so bad. It cannot be understated. It's really 2 out of 8, if I'm being honest, because I had the Browns in the Super Bowl as well. KDot, this is an opportunity for both of us here. Now, I absolutely have to revise my Super Bowl pick. Knowing what you know now, you did say Antonio Brown would have a hell of a year, and he most certainly did. He had some tremendous production.
He was also he was very productive when he was on the field.
Maybe even more productive off the field. You had the fake vaccine card. You had the storming out of New York Jets, and they're saying it's 3rd down, and he's pumping their crowd up like, screw it, why not? I'm done.
And his whole press run afterwards.
So would you revise your Super Bowl pick, or do you stick with Kansas City over Tampa Bay?
I'm not as excited as I was about it, but I'm gonna stick with it because I do think there's a good chance that this still occurs. So if I could tell you what I'm rooting for now is not that. I kind of hope I'm wrong because I want a New England fucking Tampa Bay Super Bowl. Really bad. Really bad. But I also think if I'm looking over the NFC, it's very hard for me to want to pick anyone other than Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay right now because he's got a defense again. Also, I think LA is just one of those teams that Matt Stafford was my MVP pick. He has not looked at it like that in the second half of the season. Maybe he gets it right in the playoffs, but if I'm going off a track record, probably not. So yeah, I'm sticking with my guys. I'm once again rooting for Pats Bucks, but I think I'm going to stick with the Chiefs Bucks pick.
Okay. I don't think the LA Rams are going to make it. I think I've seen enough from Matt Stafford to have questions. The Rams Cardinals game is a total toss up. The Browns, of course, I fully expect not to be there because they're not even the goddamn playoffs. Here's what I'll say. I'm actually nervous about the Green Bay Packers because they are going to have to very likely play an NFC West team to start off their Super Bowl run. They are, to me, I think San Francisco is going to beat Dallas. They are hot right now. I know Dallas is really good too, but they beat up on some bad teams. And San Francisco battle tested, in my opinion. And especially that last game against the LA Rams, they could have maybe overexerted themselves, but can anyone tackle Deebo Samuel? Genuine question. He had 8 rushing touchdowns. We talked about Antonio Gibson with 7. Deebo had 8, and that doesn't even touch his receiving stuff. 8 touchdowns for Deebo Samuel. I like the 49ers. I think Green Bay could run into trouble, and Rodgers has fallen short multiple times. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Tampa Bay, not seeing it. I do think it's going to end up being an NFC West team. It might be the 49ers. They might get hot and just do it. I wouldn't be surprised if the San Francisco 49ers go on to the Super Bowl. And who will they play? I'm just going to have fun with it because I suck at the AFC anyway. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals. I love watching Joe Burrow. I love watching Jamar Chase. And until anyone can stop them, let them keep going. Let them keep going. Cincinnati on one of the most magical runs I've ever seen. Do not take this seriously, but I'm saying it now. Cincinnati over San Francisco in LA. Why not? Imagine the chaos. It would be incredible. Revenge from one of those previous Super Bowls way back when.
Yeah. What, Boomer against Joe? Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. The revenge of Boomer.
All I know, Joe Burrow is gonna die. He has zero wherewithal to protect himself as a human being, and it's terrifying. I get it.
Gets it going.
It's amazing. I'm always rooting for him. Unless he's playing my team, I'm always rooting for Joe. But god dang, son, you need to learn to protect yourself.
Yeah. No, it is true. Pat's Bills. Real quick, just before we conclude the episode, that's an intriguing one for me. And Rams Cardinals. Who do you have in those two games?
I didn't know if it was going to skirt by without having to make these picks because I had to. I'm
those two. Just those two.
The Bills should win this game. I'm not betting against Bill Belichick in the playoffs. So give me the New England Patriots. Also, not to mention, it's going to be a cold one. Now, the wind is not going to be the same as it was in that game earlier in the season, even though Lord knows I wish it was. But I'm just going with New England. I don't pick against Bill Belichick or Tom Brady in the playoffs typically.
Okay. Sounds good. And then what about Rams Cardinals? Last one.
Rams.
Okay. I am going to go Buffalo Bills. I do think that they get the monkey off their back over here, and they do beat the New England Patriots. Rams Cardinals. I have been going back and forth. You ask me now, I'm thinking Cardinals, but you ask me tomorrow, I'm thinking Rams. Like it really is a toss up. Give it to the home team, Rams, but I don't know if they're going to do anything beyond that because Matt Stafford has had some really sketchy games recently. So we'll see what happens. But this is going to conclude the episode. This was the Washington Football Team postseason show. And then we gave you our playoff picks and we got the Washington Football Team offseason series coming starting next week. Very, very excited about it. I am Amit. That is KDot. Thank you guys for listening and enjoy Wildcard Weekend. We will see you next week.